everyone, it's Kirsten. Happy month anniversary to all of us. It's really hard to believe that we've been without our students now for 4 full school weeks. And I just wanted to take some time right now to put together what I thought was a more detailed Teams tutorial for all of our staff. Thus far, I've been sharing out just general Microsoft Teams tutorials. Now, you may have found those through my emails. I put some in the ICT FAQ document. There's also an entire Teams page on our MVSD ICT Resources notebook. Now, all of those tutorials, like I said, are general from Microsoft. They're really good for getting us onto the platform, getting set up, kind of basic steps. However, each division that implements the program has different features that they turn on and off, and each school division is having different guidelines or different versions of the same guidelines going out. So I thought it would be really nice to have a Teams tutorial that was dedicated to Mountain View School Division staff that would showcase some of these features in conjunction with any guidelines that we've already sent out, and then would maybe be able to provide some different information regarding what some of the features are and the justification as to why you would use some features over the other. The one thing that we want to realize with Microsoft Teams is that it is an online learning environment. I wouldn't necessarily call it a tool unto itself. What it does is it pulls all of our different Office 365 tools. So these are things like the communication platform, the video platform, your OneDrive files, Word documents, PowerPoint documents, notebooks, and it puts them all in one space. The justification for this is that if you have students that are online, even in the classroom, but especially when they're at home, anytime you have to send them somewhere else, you're going to lose somebody. So if you have to send them to an outside source, there's going to be a typo in the URL. They're not going to copy and paste it correctly. The tab is going to close, or the window is going to close by accident. They might not know how to get that back. And we just want to try and make this process as user-friendly as possible for them. So the idea is that if they function within Teams, they never open up any other browsers. They never have to type in any URLs. It's all just in one space. And so the thought process being that this would be as user-friendly as it possibly could, recognizing that, you know, it's still not best case scenario, because best case scenario would be to have our kids with us. But we're doing our best with what we can. So I know it seems like we've been using these online platforms for forever now. I don't know about you, but it just seems like every day is blurring into the next. But we've really only finished week 1 with our students on the platform. Hopefully this has given you an opportunity to launch your team, begin to get your students logged in and get their access information out to them. And I hope it's given you an opportunity to start to introduce them to some of the features, whatever features you may be choosing to use. And we'll talk about a lot of them. But I hope that this tutorial will be able to provide you with a little bit more information as you begin to figure out what works best for you, for your students, because it's going to be impacted by how fast their internet speed is, your comfort level, what they're already comfortable with, right? We want to try and make it as user-friendly, not only for you, but also for them. So I'm going to apologize. This tutorial is going to be long because I want to try and put in as much information as possible. So what I'm going to do to try and make this user-friendly for you is just down at the bottom here in the description, I'm going to put a timestamp for each topic. So click into the description, find a topic or topics that you're most interested in. You can click on that and it will start the video right from there, so you don't have to listen to everything I'm going to say. Of course, I invite you to, but I understand that only some things may be applicable. So feel free to use this however you see fit. So let's take a look with what our options are right now, and let's get into the Teams environment. So I always default by starting in our Mountain View School Division webpage. The reason why I do this is because it ensures that your credentials are going to be passed through the entire program. I recognize that some of us are going to be using a mixture of work computers as well as personal computers. You may be reporting to school some of the time and reporting from home the rest of the time. I know that some of our staff prefer to have a bookmark that say goes right to their team or a shortcut on their desktop. And I'm not saying that you can't do this, but some of the troubleshooting concerns that I'm having from staff members is usually because somewhere in that process, their credentials have been glitched or their credentials have timed out. So by accessing through our divisional website or your individual school website, which has the same features, you'll just be able to ensure that your credentials follow you through. So I'm on our divisional website, mbsd.ca. That login screen is up on the top, and we're going to hit Staff Intranet. So we'll click on there, and this brings you to your SharePoint. Now, SharePoint, again, is part of Office 365, so it offers that in-screen navigation like Teams so that you never have to type in any URLs or open any new windows yourself in order to get into anywhere you need. Sometimes they'll open up windows for you, but it's not things you have to do, just to clarify. So we always start off by going into the very top left-hand corner, and you want to access what we call the Microsoft Waffle. It's a 3x3 grid. If you hover over it, the word App Launcher pops up. And so you can click on the waffle, and it's going to bring down a drop-down menu for you. And this is your quick access to all of your Office 365 tools. Now, I use Teams pretty regularly, so it shows up in this quick access for me. However, if you don't use it regularly, you may have to search in this All Apps feature, and you can just type in Teams and it will show up right there. Now, as you begin to use any program within Office 365 more and more, it will show up in this quick access for you, which is really nice. So I'm going to open up Teams, and we'll let this load here. Now, your home screen for Teams is automatically going to show you any teams that you've already created or ones that you've been added to. So this is kind of your home screen, and this home screen looks the same for students as well. So they'll be able to see any teams that they have been added into. Now, I'm just going to kind of start fresh here. I know we have a few people that haven't yet launched their platforms. So I would go to Join or Create a Team, and I'm going to create a team here on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, it gives you 4 different options. It's important that you pick the correct option because unfortunately, once you get in, you can't change your team type. So it would be a shame if you went to a lot of work and then realized that some of the features weren't available for you. I feel like this is relatively straightforward for us, but some of our staff didn't quite realize that we would want to have a class team. Class is really nice because it's what allows you to have an assignments tab, which I think is going to be really beneficial. And it's also going to allow you to have a new feature, which is called Insights, which I'll show later on, which I think will be really beneficial for some of our staff members, just in regards to checking in on our students and families for accountability. So we'll click on Class, and it's going to allow you to put in a name. So I'm going to be as straightforward as possible, recognizing that we want the student as well as any parents who are looking at it to really be able to see with a quick glance what this is all about. So, grade 10 geography, Mrs. Thompson. You can put in a description if you like. And we'll hit next. Now, as it's creating a team, you're going to be provided with the option to adding your students and adding your teachers. Now, this can be done at any stage in the game, and it can be edited at any stage in the game. So if you have students that leave your class, if you have students that join your class, if you make an error, whatever the case may be, this can always be managed in the Manage Class feature later on. We want to recognize that anyone that you do add will receive an automatic notification. So what we mean by this is they'll be notified right away, and they might be able to look at the team and they're like, well, nothing's here. What am I supposed to do? So I actually prefer to create everything that I want to have in a team, and then I go back and add students. So I know that when they're looking at it, any information that I need them to see is already there. And it just kind of eliminates some of the confusion on the student side. There is also a space that you can add teachers. And this is really nice if you team teach in your building, if you have co-teachers, or depending on how you're setting up this team, if it's a team for just a home room, every subject area teacher that interacts with those groups of students can be added into this team, and you can all be functioning within the same environment. It really depends on how you want to set it up. Another thing that I do like to point out as well is when you're on the Students tab, you can also add in guests in this way. Now, why might you want to put in a guest? Well, depending on the age and stage of the individual child that you're working with, it may be beneficial for their parent or guardian to be able to have certain access to your team. Now, a guest status is going to allow them to see your posts. It's going to allow them to see when an assignment is posted, the due date for that assignment. It's not going to allow them to complete assignments, get into all of the features, but it does just allow them to kind of check in on any of the children that they are associated with. So this can be a really nice feature. And what you would do for this, I'm going to use just my personal email for this. When you type an email in, and I've done this before so it pops up, you'll recognize that it sees that it's not an MVSD email, and it said, okay, we'll add them in as a guest. So it needs to be a personal email that a parent is providing. And I just want to point this out because we do have several staff members who also happen to obviously have children within Mountain View School Division. So if the parent happens to be an MVSD staff member, please make sure that they are providing a personal email and not providing their MVSD email. When you add in their MVSD email, it's not going to allow you to default them back into that guest, and they'll have access that you don't need. It will screw up your stats when it comes to turning in assignments and insights and things like that. So just make sure that any parent or guardian that needs to be added in is with a non-MVSD email, aka their personal email. So that can be done through the Students tab as well, so I wanted to point that out. But for right now, I'm going to skip everything, establish my team first, and then go from there. So this is the main interface. One of the questions that I had that I want to address is they were asked if they could personalize their team in any way. Obviously, as you add more and more to it, that's one way that you can personalize it. From the very starting platform, you'll recognize that it always gives you a little icon that has a color and some sort of acronym. Now, depending on what you named your team, that acronym kind of just pre-populates. So mine is GG, which doesn't really have anything to do with geography. So I'm just going to click into it, and I'm going to personalize it with my own little avatar. So you can pick through whatever you like. I'm just going to pick this leaf. And that's just one way that you can kind of personalize your home screen. You can put in a welcome message as well. It does have a generic one for you, but sometimes it's nice to see something directly from their teacher. And I'm a big fan of GIFs, and so we can put that in as well. So nice little way to personalize it there for you. Another way to personalize it is through the use of channels as well as through the use of tabs. Now, channels are going to be running along the left-hand side for you over here, and tabs are going to be running across the top. Now remember, all of the information that we need can be put in here so that our students never have to open any other pages, type in any URLs, copy and paste anything, go anywhere else. Remember, we're aiming for user-friendly. So depending on how you were organizing it, you could create different channels. And so say I wanted by unit. And so it's accessible to everyone that's on the team. And we'll add in a channel there. And you can see how they start to pre-populate on the left-hand side there for you. You can have files that are specific just to that topic. You can have notes that are specific, or you can add any number of things. And we're going to be talking about adding tabs as we go through. Or you can just put everything in general, it's just classroom stuff, and you can choose to organize it in other spaces. Now remember, one of the big things I said about Teams is that it pulls all of these different tools. So there are many different ways that you can go about organizing your class team. There's not a right way, there's not a wrong way. You have to do what's easiest for you and what's easiest for your students. Because as we kind of go through, things that you can put in files can also be accomplished through a class notebook, can also be accomplished through the assignments tab. There's nothing that you have to do or can't do. Again, it's all about what works best for you. You may choose just one feature and really run with that. You may experiment with a few and then find that you tend to go towards ones more often, or you may just use a complete mixture. Again, it's what's going to work best for you. It may be different from the person down the hall from you, and that's completely fine. So the first tab that is added in there for you is the Files tab. Now this is a space where you can put any files that you want your students to have access to. And access can look different in different scenarios. You can have read-only access or you can have edit access, and it kind of depends on what you want to use it for. I prefer to only put read-only information in the Files tab. If I want my students to be able to edit something, if we're all working on one document and all of our edits appear on one page, I would much rather prefer to use a class notebook, because there's a space called collaboration space in there where we can all be working on the same thing together. Think of it like a virtual whiteboard. If I want students to be able to edit something because it's an assignment, I would rather do that through the Assignments tab, because if you put it in the Files tab, what you'll need to do is, say I have 25 students, I would need a copy for each student. Or I would need to instruct my students to copy their own copy. And if they're not familiar with OneDrive, it can get a little bit messy. And again, I'm aiming for as simple as possible. So if you want something to be a file that a student has their own unique copy to, I really would default to the Assignments tab. I think it is really slick. It just automatically sends it out to everyone for you. There's a lot of really nice features you can check on later on in regards to pulling up data. So that's kind of my personal bias. But again, you will do what works best for you and what your students are comfortable with. They may already know how to do all of that on OneDrive. So when we're looking at this, if I click on class materials, recognize that it does give you that little notice that anything in here is going to be read only. So what I would do is I would go into upload, I would find any of the files that I need, and so this is kind of already pre-set up for me, right? But I'm in my teaching files, I picked grade 10 geography, my unit 1 is geographic literacy, and I'm going to pick, let's do that again, I'm going to pick a bunch of files, and I'll upload into them so that students can have a read-only copy for themselves. Another question that I had from staff members as they were putting more things on OneDrive and trying to organize it within their teams is they asked, what's kind of the most user-friendly way to organize all of my things? My preference is to order my files in chronological order. So what I do is, say this is for our first unit, geographic literacy, I go in and I rename each of my files with a number in front of it based off of its delivery within our content. So on day 1, we have this geographic features chart. On day 2, they need these 2 documents. On day 3, this Word document. Day 4, this PDF package. And so that just kind of allows me to know, okay, this comes first, then second, then third, etc., etc. It's also really nice because as we're communicating virtually with our students, you can just say, go to file 1, go to file 2. You don't necessarily have to have this big long explanation and wonder if anything's kind of get caught in translation, because sometimes it's difficult to communicate online. So that would be one of my recommendations. And so I've put those there. They're there for view-only purposes. One of the questions that I had, especially in environments where maybe we have multiple co-teachers, is how can I confirm that the files that I put here have the permission rights that I want. So in order to access this, what you can do is you can do open in SharePoint. This is a feature that's available for staff members to see all of these options, and it operates in the back channel of Office 365. And it's going to allow you to see kind of all of the inner workings that are going on here. So I just stepped back into Documents here. This is a page out of OneDrive. And so my Unit 1 Geographic Literacy is here. And I'm just going to go click on those three little dots, and I'm going to click Manage Access. It's going to open up a drop-down menu on the right-hand side of the page, and it just allows you it allows you to confirm my visitors would be able to view the document. It says my team members, so team members are students, would be able to edit it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them into view status. That way I know that they can just look at things. If I want them to edit, they can worry about that through the Assignments tab. But I know that any files that I put out will be secure. I'll double check for general as well. Go into Manage Access, and again, change that just into view. And of course, if you need them to edit, you can change that back. So it's just a nice way to confirm your permission settings are appropriate for what you need them. So I'm just going to close that tab, and I am back here. Now, it does give you a space to establish a class notebook. This can be a nice feature. Like I said, it's just one of many, many different organizational features within Office 365. And I'm not going to set up one now because that would be a whole other tutorial. And the Microsoft ones are very good with this. There's not necessarily anything that's Mountain View specific that I would need to do our own OneNote tutorial for. However, one feedback that I am getting from staff is, you know what? I already have a notebook that we've been using all year long, or prior to our communication about Teams, some staff members chose to set up a class notebook, and now that they have Teams, they're like, I really don't want to go to all of that work again. And you don't have to. What you can do is, if you have a class notebook that's already established and you want to just put it inside this team, go across the top until you see that little plus icon, the Add a Tab feature, and you can click on that, and it provides a lot of options, and we'll talk about some of them and how we can use them. But for right now, we can go into OneNote, and you would be able to put in your own notebook. So that can be a nice feature as well. So then as we go along, we have the Assignments tab. And so this is where you would put information that you want your students to be able to edit and hand something into you for the purposes of assessment. Remember, formative assessment or summative assessment. I like to focus on formative at this time. So I'm going to create an assignment, and what I would do is I'm going to see what my resources are. I'm going to go to my teaching files, because I imagine you probably have a hard copy version of all of your assignments, because you know that you're providing some for students that don't have internet access. So I'd go into this, and I would like them to work on this worksheet, for example. So I'm going to attach that. So let's put North America worksheet and map. And so I'm going to put, please label all of the necessary features listed in the map. All right, now we have to remember, I am not in the classroom right now. I am pulling resources that I had when I was in the classroom. I would obviously make something a little bit more user-friendly, but I didn't want to go to the work of making more assignments right now for the purpose of this tutorial, so kind of bear with me. I am just going to put one point, it's either done or it's not, and I'm just going to provide detailed feedback later on. One of the nice features with this is once you have students added into your team, this list is going to pre-populate under all students. The reason why this list populates for you is you can choose to have an assignment go to all students in the team, so everybody in the class, or you can pick and choose. This is a really nice way to differentiate if you have students that are on different levels and require accommodations to be made. So you can add in, North America worksheet and map and have one copy go out to 5 students, another copy go out to the remaining 16 students. You only ever have to make reference to one. They don't need to know that they're getting different versions, and it's just a really nice way to adapt that to their needs. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick a due date that gives me quite a significant amount of time, just so that students have time to work out the platform, figure everything out. You can pick a deadline that best works for you, your students, and information that Suzanne has sent out. So I'm going to... One thing that I forgot to add in my original tutorial here was that if you want students to be able to edit that copy of the assignment, make sure that you go into that drop-down menu that's displayed in this screenshot so that they're able to edit. This will allow them to open up Word right in their browser. They won't have to make their own copy or download anything. So just make sure you allow them to edit. They all have their own individual copy, so their edit will not be affecting your original or anybody else's. Save or assign. Now, I'm going to pick assign. I don't have any students in my class. If I were to save it, it would just kind of sit there in hover mode for me as a staff member until it was time for it to be pushed to students. So in theory, if you have all of your things already created, if you have time, you can go in, make all of your assignments in this platform, save them all, and then just assign them as they become available, or you can just kind of go as you need. It's completely up to you. So I'm going to hit assign, and it shows up here. So now for me, if I had saved it, it would be in this drafts. So you can have draft assignments. Assigned means it has gone out to students, and then graded are ones that you have already done. And then we have a grades tab as well. And so you can see I do have something here. As I add students, they would pre-populate in this left-hand side here under where it says search students. And so as this was returned back to me, I would have a very quick overview of all of my information here. It's kind of tricky when I don't actually have students to add in, but we'll have to use our imagination just a little bit. So one question that I did get asked from some staff members is, I have multiple different teams right now because I teach very different groups of students, or I'm not as familiar with teams, so I'm not in it every single day. In either scenario, how can I get an email every time somebody turns something in? We can get an email in the posts feature, right? When a student comments directly to us and lets us know something, that's going to show up in our email. But for assignments, that doesn't necessarily show up right away in our email. You'd have to go into the team itself and see when things are turned in. So if you feel like you would benefit from having an email notification, there is a workaround for this. What you would do is, again, go back to that Files tab, and we're going to open up that back channel through SharePoint again. It opens up another tab, remember. And on the far left-hand side, what we want to click on is Site Contents. That's going to give us everything that's building our team. And I'm going to hit Student Work. And then we have either submitted files or working files. Now, I know our emails are busy enough already, so you probably don't want to get an email when they're working on it. However, once it's submitted, that might be beneficial for you. So I would click that. I'm going to click on the little ellipses here, and I'm just going to put Alert Me. So what's this going to do is anytime something is submitted, I'm going to get an alert. So alert me anytime the files in here change. So it's going to send the alert to me. I see the email, all changes, and so I would hit OK, and then anytime a student added something, I would get that email notification. Remember, this is just an option. I know that our emails, like mine, are probably swamped already. However, if you're managing multiple teams, or if you're not in the interface very often, but you're checking your email all the time, this can be a really nice way to keep up to date on everything that's happening within your teams. So those are the main functions across the top in regards to organizing. So different ways to put things in, either through files, a class notebook, or assignments. Some other things that you can put in, because remember, you're trying to make this as user-friendly as possible, is you can add in lots of different tabs, and you can change these tabs as you go. So for example, if you have a classroom website that's already established and that you're using, you might want to link to that. Or if you have an assignment that requires the students to use that website, then maybe you want to link to that. So I'm just going to, I know this isn't geography related, but I happen to have this saved here, right? So our home learning tab. So if I wanted students to make reference to that, I can put that in there. It's going to take a second to save. And then what you can see is that website gets embedded right into Teams itself. Again, they don't have to go anywhere. There's no missing links, typos, anything like that. So that's just a really nice feature. So you might have a website tab maybe for a week or 2 weeks if you have an assignment that requires them to go to a website. Or you may have this tab there all the time, but you switch it out regularly based off of what assignment you're talking about. So that's a really neat feature. Again, you can always remove it at any time. Another nice thing that you can add in is you could go in, I know a lot of us are taking advantage of pre-created videos that are available on YouTube. So you could add in a YouTube tab as well. And you could put in the YouTube videos that you would like them to view at that point. So if I wanted, I really like Crash Course. I've used it pretty regularly. So if I put something in like this, we'll let it save, and I'm just going to rename this. And let's pretend it goes with assignment 7. And then it's just a tab unto itself. So in your assignment or in a post that you make, you can direct them right to this website. And again, they don't have to go anywhere. Another part that is really nice as well is any YouTube videos that you put into this platform, not only can they not get lost because it's in the platform, but no ads will display. So that's really cool as well. You know, limiting the amount of consumerism that our students are exposed to is always a good thing in my books. So very cool feature. And there's lots of other tabs that you can kind of experiment and go along with based off of what you're doing. One tab that I would recommend that all staff members add in is the Insights tab. And it's showing right here. And I've used it a few times, so it shows up at the top. But if yours doesn't, just search for it. So Insights, it shows up in preview, but it does have full functionality. They just launched it last weekend. And so what Insights is it provides data for your team. Now, obviously, this is not going to be as cool because I don't have students to pull data from. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this clip and showcase this Insights tab on a staff member who already has a lot of students and has been using a team actually for this entire semester already, so there's data to pull from. But it's really, really nice because as you can see on the left-hand side, you have all of your students displayed, and it gives you insight into when they've been on the platform, how long they spent on the platform, and what they actually did when they were in the platform. So were they viewing assignments, checking out files, did they post questions to you, what exactly did they do? And so as a staff member, this can provide you with information that you need. If you see somebody that hasn't logged into the platform for a significant amount of time, maybe that warrants touching base with them. Is something happening at home and maybe we need to change our programming? Has their access changed? Has their health changed? Is there any reason why they are not engaging with the platform? Alternatively, it can provide really good information if you see that all of your students happen to usually kind of touch base between, say, 12 and 2. Maybe you can communicate that that's a really nice time. You know, I'm available for a Q&A. If you think that you need any assistance, please touch base with me at this time. And you know that it's a time that they already happen to be working. Alternatively, especially for some of our high school students, if their kind of internal schedule has flipped a little bit, being at home, they may be sleeping through the day and engaging with the platform, you know, between 11 and 1. And so maybe if you're trying to plan a live class and you think, okay, well, our class is usually at 9, so I'm going to plan a live class for 9. Maybe that's not the best if you know that your student schedules have flipped. So it just provides you with some data so that you can make really informed choices about your programming. So I know that this was a very long video. I know it will still not answer everybody's questions, but I hope it provided you with some really neat tips and tricks that you can find helpful just to make your team work the best for you, and just to ensure that you have the information that you need to make this as user-friendly as possible. I really just want to remind everyone again that there's no right way or wrong way to set up your team, and recognize that there is so many different options. So we want to make this program work for you. Don't feel like you have to switch to make yourself work for the program. Make the program work for you. If there's a feature that you're wondering about, if you need something and you can't find it, if you're wondering what is an easy way to accomplish a certain task, reach out, let me know, and we'll work together to make sure you have what you need. So, thank you very much. I hope this helps. Have a wonderful week 5 and best wishes.